Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be a guest of a Hungarian think tank in a Polish panel in Brussels, speaking freely, and that's the most important part of this evening, speaking freely about double standards and abuse that we are experiencing back at home in Poland. Because for now, this kind of critique that I will deliver today is still legal. However, I will finish the speech with general information on 30, as it was admitted by the Minister of Justice, 30 leaders of NGOs that their homes were searched, and some of them were arrested by the government in the previous months, and all of those 30 NGOs were conservative NGOs active in the political sphere. And that just puts some light to the situation that we are experiencing back at home. It is not only a theoretical issue, it's a very practical one. Because finally, the price for violation of rule of law, the price for militant democracy, the price for transitional justice implemented by Donald Tusk government is paid by the citizens. It is May this year, as I remember, that Ursula von der Leyen said, I quote, "I congratulate Prime Minister Donald Tusk and his government. The ongoing restoration of the rule of law in Poland is great for the Polish people and for our union as a whole. It is a testament to the resilience of the rule of law and democracy in Europe." And then Vera Jourova followed with, I quote, "I welcome the positive trend of the Polish authorities aiming at restoring judicial independence and addressing other concerns related to Article 7 procedure. It is good for the EU and good for Poland that this procedure might be soon closed." Those positive remarks in the last weeks of the political campaign, election campaign, were closed with another, I will close with another quote from Ursula von der Leyen. In Katowice in Poland, she said, "Poland is making a comeback. It's not just a return to the basic values and principles that have been formed here for more than 100 years. Poland is also returning as a leader of Europe." I do not have to add that those sentences had their own influence and power during the last weeks of political campaign for the European Parliament in Poland. But what truly happened that they may have said there is a comeback, the restoration of rule of law, the restoration of independence of judiciary, while not a single legal act was implemented by the parliament and entered in Poland or formed the judiciary, changed anything in the judiciary. In fact, the only action taken by the government was to present the action plan to the Commission in the first months of this year. Nothing else changed, theoretically, because nothing else could have changed, because the government does not control every branch of the government. The President of the Republic is still a conservative. And without a presidential power, not a single legal act may be introduced, not a single legal act may change the judiciary of Poland. Nevertheless, it was a breakthrough, a comeback, and a restoration of rule of law. However, something changed. It was a new doctrine of constitutional law. It was a new doctrine of government in action. This doctrine was named by invoking two well-known notions. The first one being transitional justice. The second one, militant democracy. And those two legal doctrines were introduced openly by the government as a doctrinal disguise for, in fact, authoritarian coup d'etat and liberal takeover of the state. And what is happening now in Poland? Those 11 months of Donald Tusk government, we, as independent observers, lawyers, academics, we perceive as a liberal laboratory for Europe, a liberal laboratory for coup d'etat, a kind of a liberal playbook that is being prepared and then maybe offered as a know-how to other emerging liberal governments in post-conservative states in European Union. But if I mentioned transitional justice and militant democracy, let me quote Donald Tusk, 10th of September this year, saying, "We have a need today to act in these terms of militant democracy. I mean, we will probably make mistakes more than once, or commit acts that, according to some legal authorities, will be incompatible or not fully in accordance with the provisions of the law. But nothing relieves us from the responsibility to act every day. I, daily, have to make decisions that can be very easily criticized and challenged from the legal side. But without these decisions, I would actually make no sense at all for me to take the responsibility of running the work of the government." And his surprising sincerity in those few sentences was followed by similarly honest declaration of Adam Bodnar, Minister of Justice. What is happening is that we are restoring the constitutional order. And we are looking for some legal justification for that. This combination of transitional justice and militant democracy is what characterizes current regime in Poland, operating under the guise of noble legal doctrines, while in fact violating the basic precepts of rule of law, constitutional model of government, separation of powers, independence of judiciary, and independence of public media. Let me name 4 principles of liberal takeover. The first principle, media, because it all started with takeover of public media. On December 19th last year, it was the first act of the new government, just 6 days after it was sworn in. The acting Minister of Culture and National Heritage, Colonel Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz, dismissed the existing chief executives of the boards of Polish TV, Polish Radio, Polish Press Agency, as well as the supervisory boards of these companies, and appointed new supervisory boards in their place, which appointed new management boards. The minister's actions were undertaken in violation of statutory provisions that invest all powers over public media in order to secure their independence in the Council of National Media that couldn't have been taken over without statutory intervention and without the consent of the president. During the forced and violent police takeover of the public media buildings, because it was in fact a violent fight over the buildings, broadcasting signal of Polish public television and radio has been intentionally turned off for the first time since martial state was introduced in 1981 to purge the country from solidarity freedom movement. That is something that is absolutely open, and that is something that is absolutely close to every citizen in Poland. Everybody experienced that for the first time since 1981. The second principle of this playbook is a takeover of the courts, of course. First, the National Judicial Council and independence of judges. Also in December last year, the resolution was adopted in order to, and it was done, of course, in flagrant violation of the Polish constitution. The resolution calls members of the National Council of Judiciary to immediately cease their activities in this constitutional body, and declares every decision of this council since 2018 to 2023 as null and void. What does it mean? It means that we have 2,500 judges, at least, nominated by a constitutional body declared by the parliament against the constitution as, in fact, non-judges at all. Thousands of their decisions being non-verdicts at all. The next is takeover of the National Prosecutor Office. What does it mean? takeover of the National Prosecutor Office. It means the takeover of the whole tree of prosecutor offices across Poland. All criminal proceedings that are taken over by the new government in open violation of the Act securing independence of the prosecutor office. It has been admitted by the Supreme Court in September, but what was the reaction of the government? The government declared the decisions of the Supreme Court null and void. And of course, what will happen next? With the control over media, control over courts, control over criminal proceedings, this year, as it was admitted by the Minister of Justice, 30 politicians, board members of NGOs, homes were searched, documents, computers, and phones taken. Some of them, like the Catholic priest Father Olszewski, were arrested. The Independence March Association that organized yesterday's march of 300,000 people in Poland, in Warsaw, was also searched, and many of their belongings were taken by the police. It is the current situation of Poland. Many of my clients, I'm a lawyer in Warsaw, are absolutely unsure of the final outcomes of their own criminal or civil proceedings. They do not know if the prosecutors they are running against are validly elected or not, if indictments are validly signed or not. Are judges deciding their cases judges or not? This is the outcome of the fight for the rule of law. Thank you.